Hi everybody, welcome to another video. So we're going to do a spray out of the Kiwami 4 series, and I thought I would just run through the caps. Now I've done this in another video for the Wider 4, but I thought I would do it for this one before the spray out, because a few people have asked me about the various patterns and to do a spray out. So we'll just have a quick look. This is the WB version, WB2. So that's the cap you get, and that is the tip you get. So it's got a free split tip and the WB2 cap. Now we've also got the WBX, which is here, which is similar to the WB cap, but the holes are slightly different. The holes in the air hole are slightly different. The tips are exactly the same. They've got different markings on them, but they're exactly the same. They're a free split tip. The air holes are exactly the same. So those two are the same, apart from the cap. We have the Kiwami 4, which is the equivalent to the Balearia, which is the BA4J. And you can see there that it's just got the conventional tip. There's no cutouts in it, quite large holes, no cutouts like there is in the WB and the WBX. And we've also got the Wider. I've put the Wider 2 and the Wider, the Wider and the Wider 4, the Wider 4 and the Wider4L. And the reason I put those two together is because they're the same body as the Kiwami. So the Kiwamis and the Widers are the same, exactly the same body. It's purely this cap and tip that make the difference. But if you can see there, I'm struggling with the light a bit today, but if you can see there, you can see the difference in the Wider tip. That's the Wider 4, and this is the that's the Wider4L. This is the Wider 4 tip. And of course the Wider 4, just the standard Wider 4, has a standard tip, and that tip is actually the same as the Kiwami 4. So the standard Wider 4 has exactly the same tip as the Kiwami 4. The Wider4L, it has a tip that is completely alien to itself, in that the holes are a different size, but it's also, if you can see, a 4 split tip. If you can see there, it's a 4 split tip. So the Wider4L and the Wider 4 are totally different tip wise, as you can see. 4 there, 4L that one, and the caps. So I'm going to put the camera on my head and we're going to run through and do a little spray out video, because it's horrible outside. So I thought, well, why not do this? Cheers guys. Okay then guys, so spray out time. We got the Kiwami 4 with the WBX cap. Now these are going to run at the pressures recommended by the manufacturer. So 2 bar in the case of this. The WB2 is 1.8 bar or 26 psi. The Kiwami 4 is going to be at 2 bar. The Wider 4 is at 2 bar. And the Wider4L is at 1.1 bar, because that's what's recommended, which is 16 psi. Tip size is 1.3 in the Wider 4, 1.4 in the Wider 4, 1.4 in the Kiwami 4, 1.4 in the WB2, and 1.3 in the WBX. You can interchange those two tips, but to make the test more easier for me, basically I'm running that at 1.3 and that at 1.4. So we'll start with the WBX. We're going to set it to 2 bar. Hopefully you can see that 2 bar. We're on full fluid, full fan, and we will be doing that for the whole lot. Mixture here of clear coat and thinners, but it's done to this, it's just so that I don't have to clean the gun straight away, but it's done to exactly the same viscosity as a normal high solids clear coat that I use would be done. So it's fully representative of what a clear coat would actually look like. So we'll start off with a WBX. Now I'm going to hold it my normal distance, which is around about 6 inches. Now I'm not going to measure it because people measure it and they do move slightly anyway. You'll just have to trust me that it's about the same. So let's try it, see what we get. I'll straighten that up a bit, might be better. Quite a big pattern there. So we go now to the WB2. So we're back to the WB2. I've got exactly the same gauge, the gauge that was on the WBX. So we're going to set this to 1.8 bar. There. Again, full fluid, full fan. Make sure the tips a bit, sorry, the cap's straight this time. Same material. I've added a little bit of black tinter to it just to make it a bit more outlined for you guys, really. So already we can see that that's actually a fatter pattern than the WBX. Right, and now we go on to the Kiwami 4. Okay guys, so we're back with the standard Kiwami 4. So it's just got a standard tip, it hasn't got a split tip at all. We're going to set it to 2 bar because that's what's recommended to the manufacturer. And to be fair, all these pressures are roughly what I use these things at anyway. So bring that down. You notice that this gauge has come straight off the WB, and I've put it on here and it's running at about 2.2 bar immediately, whereas on that it was running at 1.8 bar, and that's because the cap, as you've seen at the start of the video, the cap in the WB has much larger holes, so it consumes more air. So you don't need as much air to power this thing to get a higher pressure, basically, because it uses less air. Anyway, 2 bar, full fluid, full fan as per the rest of them. Now that is one big pattern, and this really does pump it out. Compared to these two, it really does pump it out. It's a much faster gun. It doesn't atomize as fine though. But now we go on to the Wider4. Back with a Wider4. I'm going to run it at 2 bar, as we say, 29 psi. So I'll set this at 2 bar, and you can see that's using the same amount as the Kiwami 4, because these two caps use very similar amount, although as you're about to see, quite a different pattern. So here we go, same distance or thereabout. You can see the difference between the Wider4 and the Kiwami 4. This pattern's similar to the WB2, or the WB2 is still more of an eye pattern. But you can already see that the patterns are quite different. It's amazing how different. I mean, the gun body is the same in all of these. It's purely the tip and the cap that's doing everything. Right, let's go for the Wider4L and see what that's like. Okay guys, so just the Wider4L at the end. Exactly the same, full fan, full fluid, and we're going to run this at about 1.1 bar, which is about there. Make sure that's right, and see what that's like. You can see actually that this puts out less fluid, but it gives you a very similar pattern, although they are all slightly different. What I'm going to do is I'll put this gun down and we'll just run along and just see the difference, and I'll get a tape measure as well, and we'll see what that's what the actual pattern sizes are. Okay guys, so we run along the pattern. So Wider4L, about 7.5 inches, 190 mil, something like that. The Wider4, a fatter, wetter pattern, about 170 millimeters, 6 3/4 inches. The Kiwami 4 is huge. That's about 26 centimeters, 260 millimeters, or 10.5 inches, just over 10 inches. The WB2 is about 17 centimeters, 170 millimeters, about 6 3/4 inches. And the WBX, it's starting to dry out, but it's still there. The WBX is around about 23 centimeters, 230 millimeters, about 9 1/4 inches. But you can see all of them are different patterns. These are all wetter. The Wider4L, the Wider4 is a wetter pattern. These two, the WBX and the BA4, is a much more of an eye pattern, a bigger pattern, and not so central wet. WB2 is also quite center wet. But yeah, quite interesting. I'd use these guns individually. I did a spray out, a back-to-back on the, I think it was the Kiwami 4 and the Wider4. So I'll put that in the description, and you can see that. But yeah, I thought we'd have some fun because it's pouring rain. It's horrible, really. All right, guys. Thanks for watching as always. Cheers. Bye bye.